Welcome back to Ranger 2. And if you're watching this now, you're one of the few who's watching the first of my channel on Ranger School. So there's not many of you out there right now. So I feel like we're can just be relaxed. You know, go ahead and get a beer or a cup of coffee, whatever you want. Just relax, sit back, and we'll talk a little bit about Ranger School. You're either an old Ranger like me back from the late 1980s, or you've been in the Army before and you've gone to Ranger School. Maybe you were in the Ranger Battalion. Maybe you were in Special Forces and you attended Ranger School. Or maybe you were a Navy SEAL and you attended Ranger School. I know when I went there, during 5-86, if you saw the Ranger 1, you'll know that I started in 5-86 and graduated in 6-86. And the honor graduate from 5-86 was a Navy SEAL. The honor graduate from 6-86 was Lieutenant Liberto. And if you're out there, Lieutenant Liberto, you did a great job. Lieutenant Liberto and me and some of my other airborne, non-airborne, I was not airborne qualified when I went to jump school. And there was a number of us who were not. And we, upon graduation, we walked from Ranger School to, we didn't walk, I think they trucked us over there. When we went from there over to jump school. Nice thing about that was we didn't have to take the airborne fitness test. I don't think I could have passed it. It was 7 airborne pull-ups, and I don't think I could do 7 airborne pull-ups at that time. You know, at the beginning of Ranger School, of course, I was a phenom, but at the end, I was not. Making a 2-mile run in jump school and keeping up there with me and my Ranger comrades, just graduated, was very difficult. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of things I can talk about. Being in the military, Ranger School itself. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to try to stay away from going down a rabbit hole, so to speak, that you hear sometimes. Okay, let's, help me to help you so I don't go down that hole. Okay? All right, thank you very much. So, the correct term, by the way, I was talking about false valor, and the reason why I'm putting up some of these documents of mine from the past, taking out the Social Security number. So if you see a certificate, it's blacked out in a part. That means I blacked out the Social Security number. It kind of mars the certificate itself a little bit, but so what? I want you to see the documents. I want you to know that I am who I say I am. Again, that's stolen valor. Thank you, Don Shipley. I like him. He's a Navy SEAL. Anybody out there that knows stolen valor has seen some Don Shipley, Chief Shipley's, I believe he's was a chief in the Navy SEALs. And you've seen his videos. I like him. So, no stolen valor here, folks. We already talked about my combat experience, which is limited. So if you're looking for somebody to give you some combat experience advice, I'm not the one. You want to go to Sean Ryan. He has a number of great guests. Love his show. There's so many videos out there about Rangers that have been in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. Not too much about World War II or Vietnam or the Korean War. We'll talk about Vietnam, though. That's one of the wars that I've studied a lot. When I was in the military, talking about studying about wars. All right, I was in the Army for 3 years, 17 years in the Marines. The Vietnam War was the war that we studied. We studied it a lot. A lot of our tactics were based on the Vietnam War. Of course, we studied World War II and Korea. Not so much World War I, but World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and specific battles within those wars I'll talk about later. I am very familiar with those periods of conflict and war. And we'll talk about what the Rangers did then and their history and things like that. But we're not going to go there. Promise not to go down that rabbit hole. Don't want to do that. Talk about a little bit about Ranger School in preparation. Okay, I don't know what it's like now to go to Ranger School with respect to land navigation. Okay, we didn't have GPS back then. In fact, we didn't have GPS until I left the desert in '96 to go to recruiting school. That's the only way I could get out of being in the desert. I was there for 5 years as a scout forward observer, as a team leader. I ran the scout team for the artillery scout team for one of the battalions. I did that for 5 years. Great experience, very hard. But we didn't have GPS. All of my land nav skills was a map, map and a compass. Okay, and that's what we had. Right when I left, oh my goodness, we've got that sat phone that had a GPS on it. We had to line up satellites on that thing. So I thought that was wonderful. That was the new tech, and there was some other new tech coming online at the time. Things that you would look at today and you'd go, oh my, that's just dinosaur stuff, Stone Age stuff. So, but it was very cutting edge at the time. All right, back to land nav skills. Do you guys have to know land nav skills to go to Ranger School? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing that helped me survive was I was a land nav god when I went there. And I thought I was really good at it, but I found out there were people that were better. One of the things that we had to go through, and maybe you have had to do it too if you went to Ranger School, if you're preparing to go to Ranger School, is we had to go through the land nav course after 2 weeks of being at Rangers. Was it 2 weeks? Remember, I got to think about this stuff. Might have been 10 days. So after those 10 days, after that first week of really just kind of hell, seeing if you wanted to be in Ranger School, that's what the Ranger instructors told us. Let's find out if you want to really be here. Castle. Let's find out if you really want to be here in Ranger School. So the first 4 or 5 days, might have been 5 days, it was like a hell week. Pretty tough. And from there we went out on that's when we started patrolling. And when we came back from that patrolling, or before we did that patrolling, got to think for a minute. So, but at some point we went through a land nav course. And is your map and your compass and your protractor. You plotted your direction and heading, and you took off. And I believe there was 8 points at that time, 8 points, and you had to get 6 of them, if memory serves me correctly. And if you got 6, you passed. If you didn't get 6 within the time limit, I don't recall exactly the time limit. I believe it might have been 4 hours. But if you did not arrive back there at the check-in point with your points, and you didn't have all the right you didn't have enough points, which I had enough. I just barely had enough, which was 6, I believe. You'd have to come back the next week and do it again. And but the next week was right before we went to Dahlonega, the mountain phase. If you've been to Ranger School, you know that. If you did not pass that initial land nav test, then you would have to retake it a week later. And you didn't get to go to Ranger Joe's. I believe they gave us 6 hours to go, to leave, go out to Ranger Joe's, go get something to eat, sleep. I remember going to Ranger Joe's, getting something to eat, and going to sleep. And then getting on the bus and sleeping all the way from Fort Benning, it was called Fort Benning at the time, up to the Ranger camp, Dahlonega, up in the mountains. So there's that. So don't, for goodness sake, go to Ranger School and not be an absolute god when it comes to land nav if that's one of their elements, if that's still one of their elements there, which I got a feeling it is, because what if your GPS goes out? Or what if it gets jammed? I don't even know if they do that anymore. Can they jam your GPS on the ground? I don't know. You tell me. In any event, good place, if there's a land nav, make sure you know it before you get there. What else did I want to talk about? I don't want to keep it too long. There's some other things about Ranger School that I wish I had known and I didn't, which I'm not going to get into today. All right, just wanted to hit that up on land navigation. Again, I went to Ranger School back in 1987, and Airborne School right after that. I was not airborne qualified when I went to Ranger School. I don't know if they still do that, but I wasn't. In any event, I thank you again for watching, and we will cover other topics the next time I create a video, which will be very soon. And don't forget to check out my other videos on YouTube, Council of Zeus 2. Have a great day.